All right, welcome Colorado Springs, surrounding area, and wherever you're watching from in Colorado, across the United States. We are here and lucky enough to meet and have a conversation with Chef Brother Luck and a few instrumental leaders in the local area when it comes to Army recruiting and Army in general. Open it up. We're going to have a discussion about leadership, inspiration, motivation, and everything in between about really what the success equation is and how you can become successful as a leader, mentor, and what you have to do to do that before you can become a leader. So I'm going to go ahead and let these gentlemen give their bios, and we're going to start with First Sergeant Marshall, and take it away.
All right, I'm First Sergeant Jason Marshall. I was born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I joined the Army in 2001. I really had nothing going on for myself. I was couch surfing, trying to find guidance and maybe some direction in my life. Joined the Army. I got lucky enough to get stationed in Italy. I went all over Europe. All my friends were in community college and big-time college, and I was traveling Europe having the time of my life. I picked the job infantry and an airborne option to it, so I got to jump out of planes. I came to recruiting in 2010, came kicking and screaming, did not want to be a part of it, but fell in love with it, and really enjoyed helping people get that first step in life, whether they made it a career in the Army or did one tour and got out and did something else. I've been in for 20 years almost, and I love every day of it.
Captain Trinkle?
Yeah, I'm Captain Josh Trinkle, commander for Colorado Springs Army Recruiting Company. Little farm boy. I came out of a rural community in Ontario, Oregon. Grew up farming, working with my hands all the time. I enlisted back in 2007 as an infantryman. And then went back into college in ROTC, and then came up as an engineer. Started out my career, we went downrange to Afghanistan and ran route clearance, so trying to pull IEDs out of the ground before the maneuver guys ran over them. And then came back to the States and ran engineering-type projects and construction-type things for Fort Campbell for a while, and then I've been in company leadership on through then, and that brought me where I am here today.
Hey, my name is Lieutenant Colonel Mike Olson. I was born on a 300-acre farm out in northwest Wyoming. Not much out there. I call it rural country, but most of Wyoming's rural. And I spent a lot of time traveling as a young kid with family back and forth between Idaho and Utah, where I eventually graduated high school was Utah. But as we were traveling down the interstates, I'd always see this convoy of green or whatever vehicles rolling down, and it just fascinated me as a kid. And I thought, man, how do you do that? How do you join that? I want to drive one of those vehicles, right? So after I graduated high school, I talked to some recruiters and joined the National Guard. And what they never tell you is that those vehicles don't have air conditioning. So I thought, well, there's got to be something better. So I went to college, and I've always had a fascination with helicopters and aviation in general. And so I was fortunate enough to branch aviation in the U.S. Army. I went to flight school after I graduated college, and they didn't tell me those don't have air conditioning either. But, we take the doors off to make up for that. But I've been doing that for the last 19 years before coming to this job as the battalion commander for the Denver Recruiting Battalion. And we cover Nebraska, Colorado, and southeast Wyoming. We have 39 recruiting stations that we're in charge of.
Chef?
I'm Chef Brother Luck. Born in San Francisco, inner city, nowhere near a farm. And I've been cooking since 1996, which is pretty surreal. Got into culinary out of necessity. Food was a scarcity. I've been on my own since I was 14, so to have the option of a steak dinner and a couch to sleep on, those things were really ideal. Got into a vocational program when I was 16 years old, moved to Phoenix, Arizona. Getting into that vocational program actually gave me great inspiration. I had really good mentors. A lot of people always ask me, how did you become a chef? How did you find that passion so young? It's because I had grown men actually tell me good job, and that positive reinforcement actually encouraged me to want to receive that attention more and more and more. So I pursued culinary. I actually was going to the Army, and the recruiter said my asthma was too extreme and it wasn't seasonal allergies. So I ended up competing in culinary competitions throughout high school. Ended up graduating high school with a $30,000 scholarship that sent me to culinary school. So from there, traveled all over the world, Japan, China, just been everywhere, worked for some major hotel companies. And then when I was 30, I decided I wanted to do it for myself. So I jumped off a cliff and built an airplane on the way down. And here we are 8 years later, still surviving.
So I appreciate you guys sharing those things. What you said, Chef, was passionate leaders inspired you along the way, and I think that's kind of what we're here to do, is talk about those passionate leaders and how we took whatever their attributes were, characteristics, and kind of made it into our own personalities to lead others. So we'll start open discussion really, and we can start with first Marshall if we want to. Is who were your mentors growing up? How did they mentor you? And then what kind of motivates and inspires you to help you inspire and motivate others?
Okay, yeah, my mentor is probably my dad's best friend, and man by the name of Mitch Cowart, who you actually, when you were coming in the office today, that's who I was talking to, because I was telling him about moving the family to Houston, because that's the next assignment. He's known me since I was 4. He raced bikes with my dad down in Albuquerque, road bikes like Lance Armstrong. Not my cup of tea whatsoever, but they really enjoyed it. But he got me into wrestling when I was a kid. He was like, hey, you need to wrestle. And now I've passed that legacy on to both my sons. We are definitely a wrestling family at tournaments every weekend. And he invited me to breakfast one morning. I was 19, and he was the one who was like, hey, man, you've got nothing going on. You need to do something. Just go join the Army. Go see something. Do your thing. And get out and go to school, or get out and get another job. Do something. And so that's what I did. I actually talked to him today, and we were talking. He just told me how proud he was. I call him Uncle Mitch. He's got like 8 kids of his own, but he still found that time to, give me that tough love of, hey, you're not as cool as you think you are. You need to figure something out with your life. And so, he was probably my biggest, aside from my dad, but just that separate mentor that's not your dad, that's not riding you all the time.
So you look back at those memories and those things to try to help you guide through what you're doing currently still.
Absolutely. And it's funny, too, because my wife the other day, she came downstairs. She's like, I told that boy to go clean that bathroom, and it's not done. You go beat him. And my son's, he's a man size. He's a boy, but he's 5'10" and 170, and he's a freshman in high school. So I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. Mitch told me about this, and it was when I was working for him one summer digging swimming pools. I was at the same age. My body was growing so fast that I didn't know how my body worked. Like, I gained 50 pounds in a year, and I just was so tired all the time because I was growing. Mitch at that time had no idea and just told me I was lazy. But then later on, he's like, I realized that you were just tired. So I told him, I was like, hey, he's just growing constantly. He's exhausted. Your body's growing that much. It's not going to work. So I helped him clean the bathroom. The bathroom got cleaned, and we carried on about our day.
So he keeps mentioning the height of his son. I don't think Ohio State's watching this. I just want to let you know that right now.
My boy's going to Texas A&M. He's going to a JV college football program. He's going to a real one.
Okay, all right. So, Chef, mentors, leaders that you had that kind of inspired you still to this day?
Yeah, when I think about mentorship, people who inspired me, obviously it starts with your parents. My father actually passed away when I was 10, so I cling to a lot of the values that he instilled in me as a young man, as a boy, because that was it. And, when you're released into the world, you have to grow up really fast. And for me, a lot of the mentors that I was around were negative individuals. They were looking to take advantage of you. They were looking to use you. They were looking to have you, do things for them, whether it was, crimes or just the natural street life. For me, culinary was the place where I found positive reinforcement. And these were French chefs. These were Scottish chefs, Italian maitre d's. I mean, they had discipline. And I hadn't experienced that discipline for probably 5-6 years as a young adolescent. So to have someone hold you accountable really set a tone in me. And, I was thinking about this 2 days ago. I was downstairs in the restaurant, and I was cleaning the walk-in, and I can think back to probably 2001, 2002. I was working in a hotel, and I had this chef I worked under, this garde chef, and she was a maniac when it came to cleanliness and organization. And every day she would go in the cooler with a razor, a box cutter, and she would cut every edge perfectly off of all the boxes and arrange the walk-in. And it was religious. I caught myself doing that 2 days ago and teaching these new cooks. This is the expectation. So, I have many mentors throughout my career, but I always think back to those examples that they set for me to follow, especially when I was young in my career, because now I'm giving those to the next generation of here's what my expectation is of you, because they don't know. We assume, but they don't know until you show them.
Yep. So I think too that leads into really is you don't know who's watching you, right? So you never know what young person is watching that leader do right or wrong, and so whatever you feel is right, you're going to emulate that throughout your probably career as well too. So did she know you were watching? You were watching the whole time?
No, I think that's just who she was. But I also think one of the most important pieces is. We have to set the example for the next generation, because they are watching, and most of them have no clue on they're going to mimic the leaders that they're under until they eventually gain enough experience to find themselves comfortable with their own style of leadership. Right. So they're going to mimic the negative ones. I was one of those chefs when I was younger that yelled and screamed and threw things and was constantly angry, because that's all I knew as a young chef. That's how my chefs acted, until I realized, there's other ways to lead, to inspire, to motivate, to encourage. So I think that's a big piece of it.
That sounds like a lot like the sergeant to staff sergeant, but Colonel Olson.
Sometimes it's just more fun to yell and scream, though, right?
Yeah.
No, so that's a great question. Who inspires and motivates? And my mentors, when I think back on, the last 20 years of my life, actually double that. I'm, in my mid 40s, but I've had so many people that have been influential in making me who I am. Number one, my parents, like Chef Brother Luck said, can't take away from their great parenting and how they brought me up. But faith leaders, scout leaders, coaches, teachers in school, all of those. But if I was to pick one, and who really sticks out to me, is my Uncle Sam, and not the government Uncle Sam, right? This is Samuel Pollock, who was a buddy of my dad's when they were in college. Dad went off, did his thing. Uncle Sam got drafted, went to Vietnam, and he was always just a hero of mine. He spent a year downrange, doing what our country asked for him to do, and then he spent the next entire life giving back to his country and giving back to his fellow veterans, trying to help with PTSD and help his brothers in arms receive those benefits that they weren't getting at the time. And I ran into an individual at Sportsman's Warehouse. I was looking at guns, guy behind the counter. We started talking, and he knew my uncle. And out of nowhere, he just says, "Hey, your uncle has done more than you will ever know." He produced music, he wrote songs, and just trying to help individuals. And he was just a hero of mine. When I was joining the Army, he tried to talk me out of it. He's like, you don't want to do this. This is not what you want for you and your family. Fortunately, the Army has changed significantly since those times, and my wife and my family and our experience has been completely different than his experience. But just inspiring, and my heart goes out to him. He has such a great memory. And he's now in a veterans home in St. George, Utah, with Alzheimer's. And I take my boys in there. They know the stories that I've shared about him, and they don't know him and remember him as I remember him, but they can still see that what a great man that he still is.
Appreciate it, sir. Captain Trinkle.
Yeah, you guys were talking about. I was just kind of running through my head, the most influential people I've worked with in my life, and I found two common threads through all of them. My grandparents, my parents, my company commanders, my battalion commanders, these were people who weren't just, they didn't just care about me and want me to be successful in life. They were also the people who tended to be the most demanding of me. They weren't the kind of people who would take a look at a task after I've completed it and be like, yeah, well, that's good enough. They were the people who challenged me and gave me more than I thought I could handle and expected great things from me. And then were willing to step back a little bit and let me struggle just to kind of see, what it was that I could actually do and let me discover for myself, what my actual limits were. Because, most of my life, you never really know what it is you're actually capable of doing until somebody presents you with that challenge and you start going, oh man, this is more, I'm in over my head right now. But they're willing to just step back and let you struggle a little bit and let you, kind of see for yourself what you're capable of and the kind of pressure that you're under. And Chef, it's kind of like what you were saying too, people placing these extreme demands on you and then just seeing what will come of it and letting people rise to the challenge and see what they see for themselves. But that's what made those people really stick out in my mind for me.
Yeah, no, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my parents as well. I mean, I think that's just that generation where it's the example setting. So I don't remember my parents ever coming home and complaining about anything. Maybe coworkers, but never really complaining about the work that had to be done. So if there's work to be done, you just did it, and then you came home and you did it again the next day and the next day. And I think that's the most important example I think that I had for sure. And Chef, you mentioned watching your leaders do things and how you incorporated what they did into your day-to-day life now. But First Sergeant Marshall, becoming a leader, how important is it to understand how to be a follower before you can lead people?
Well, I think it's dire. I mean, you can't lead unless you know how to follow first, right? That's how we do it in the Army. Everybody comes in as a private or a specialist if they've got a bachelor's degree, but they're still treated like privates. You still have to follow that NCO. And I remember back as a private, I had a team leader, and that dude, I don't even know where he's at now in life. He could be retired. He could still be in. But that guy lived with the entire fire team. He was with us constantly, no matter what. If we were going out to have fun, he was coming with us. If we were there to work, he was working with us, and really set that tone of, as that first level leader, you're in the fight with your team, no matter what that is, at all times. And I tried to emulate that as best I could. I had examples in the Army of poor leadership and, like Brother was saying, the yelling and the screaming. And I've realized it with coaching my kids is I can get a way better product through motivation and encouragement than I can from screaming obscenities and telling them that they're wrong. So I think it's very important.
But I think, and Chef, it's kind of a question for you too, is really, I think the lines blur less when it comes to military, and like you were talking before we started, was there really is no, it's kind of together when it comes to military and working on a line, whether it be in the kitchen or wherever else, when it comes to standards and discipline, and then following and understanding what's been told to you to make sure you accomplish it. So when it comes to you and you starting up, how did it kind of evolve for you in that process of learning, what right looks like?
I think there's definitely a generation change in mindset. We didn't question. You were told to do something, you did it. You did it to the best of your ability, and you got it done. And as we look at team members now, this is a unique time because we have, baby boomers, we have Gen X, Y, Z, millennials, all in the workplace. And when it comes to the restaurants and how we have to lead, the consequences, the repercussions aren't as severe as versus being in the military. You don't have a choice. I told you do something, get it done. You get a lot of feedback here in the business. So, for me, it's constantly educating our leaders and our staff to understand that we have to approach each other as individuals. Everyone has a different story. Everyone has a different background. Everyone has different triggers. And if you understand who those people are as individuals, you're going to be able to lead them better. So, we're doing this transition right now with two key leaders here in this restaurant, and they came in hot. They came from our other establishment, which is an upscale restaurant, and they came in with that mindset that we're going to run this place just like that place because we've been successful. That's why we got our promotions. Problem is that this is a different beast. This is a different animal. It doesn't run the same way. So they came in so hot last week where they presented themselves as, no, this is the way we're doing it. You guys, we're here for a reason. In reality, we want you to grow. We want you to become leaders in this new establishment because, you've shown us something. We don't want you to come in and just ruin culture, right? So protecting culture is the constant challenge every day. So this whole week for me has been coaching and growing these two leaders to understand that this team wasn't doing bad. It just needs they need love right now, not harshness. and we're going to get to that point, but a lot of it is getting back to basics. Where are the systems? Where are the protocols? Where is everything that's in your head needs to be on a piece of paper. It does no one any good if only one person knows how to do it. We have to communicate all of this stuff. So we're pushing really hard in this establishment right now to change that culture, but at the same time protect the leaders and the staff from each other. I mean, they're like, I'm done with this place. That was too much. I'll never work another week like that. And this is someone who's had 2 years of tenure. You're like, okay, breathe. Use your words. Now let's talk through this. How do we resolve? So it's constant. It's a constant challenge.
Sure.
So, Chef, I'm going to ask you a question then because Sergeant Major and I were having that conversation today. We get a lot of changeover in the Army, and a lot of times people come in and they want to make these drastic changes and fix something that maybe not broke. So how have you solved that here in the restaurant, and how can I take that back to the our formation and keep people from trying to fix what's not broken and try to change everything when it doesn't need to be changed?
Yeah. My wife was actually the one who called me out on this last night. Her and I were having the conversation after our discussion, and she said, well, as the leader, did you give a very clear expectation, and how did you communicate that to your leaders on how to actually deliver that message? Or did you just say, hey, we're bringing you guys over here, we need you to fix it? So it made me kind of question, how did I set the tone, and was I very clear about these are the great people that are left, protect them, or no, I want you to come and fix everything? So I had to question that first part. The second was I had to humble the leaders by breaking them back down to following and learning. So one of the things we're actually doing is one of those leaders are actually stepping into a production role and bartending all weekend and getting into the grind, doing the shift, and earning the respect of the staff. And I'm hoping that that's going to be a good solution, because then there's trust that's established within the team and this new leader. So I'm trying to humble that person by putting them into the very basic part of the production to hopefully build trust so they don't break. And they know who the people are. I mean, I think you learn someone when you're side by side and you're fighting it out, or you're in the weeds. You learn someone's personality really well, and I'm hoping that that's what happens this weekend.
That's awesome. Yeah, so it's perfect too, because everything we're kind of going through, it's kind of following the topic line, so it's wonderful. But you mentioned trust. I think it's the first time that we've mentioned trust so far today. And Captain Trinkle, I'd love for you to be able to expound a little bit on trust a little bit, and then also you talked about transcending those lines between military and civilian, how really close they are. When you're talking, it's basically the same problems that we might have in the recruiting center or the platoon, to where how do I create that buy-in? So Captain Trinkle, trust and buy-in within your company, and how we create that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Chef, look, I know you were talking about it a little bit in one of your previous podcasts. Like trying to build up an organization, build a system that's lasting. And if you end up building a system and then you walk away from it and it collapses, well, then you haven't really built anything at all. And so it's tough to find those leaders that you can empower, and when you can actually place that trust in them to continue carrying it on even in your absence. But it's it's amazing when you do find people that are capable of those kinds of things. People in your organization where you can just give them a broad spectrum of things that you need accomplished, and give them all the free reign in the world to go out and accomplish it, and then just stand back and stay out of their way, and then watch them impress you with the things that they're capable of. I don't know, what are some of the instances you've experienced with that?
So, over the course of the last 8 years as a independent business owner, coming from corporate background where I had every bit of system built out there, every bit of support out there, you're not building anything. You're just a part of the operation. Going on my own was the moment, the first feeling was, oh, I'm so excited. I don't have to follow any more rules. I get to do what I want. This is my show finally. And then 2 weeks later, you realize we need rules, right? Those are there for a reason. There was a moment where I started to understand that every corporation started as an independent at some point. So, there was something my uncle told me when I was a very young manager that I've never forgotten. And every employee deserves three things: the tools, the training, and the support to be successful. And I have to question myself every time I'm discussing a termination or a transfer or a resignation. Did that person get all three of those things from me? Because it's not the people that come in and become the superstars. It's the systems. It's the support. It's the training. Do they have the tools to be successful? So I always ask myself, did I provide those three things? Did they have all the paperwork they needed to do the ordering properly and manage the financials? Did they have all the tools they needed to execute the job properly and to my expectation? Did I set measurable expectations? Did I say, go clean the cooler, and show up an hour later and go, why didn't you clean it? And they're like, well, I did. Well, no, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, you didn't do this. So I have to say, I want you to go clean the cooler, and I want all the boxes cut off. I want everything alphabetized. I want it color-coded. I want all these pulled out. I want it pressure washed, and I'll be back in 3 hours. So measurable expectations are a constant focus for me, giving them to my staff, because that gives us better communication. So tools, training, support, I think are what creates superstars. And then not rewarding superstars with more work, right? If we have falling stars on our team, then that's our standard, and we're allowing it as leaders. So we can't reward the superstars with more work because they're picking up the slack of the ones that aren't doing the work. So I'm always questioning those things and trying to solve for those as the business owner.
Yep. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I was kind of curious because an interesting parallel with what you were talking about with your own subordinates. You're talking about bringing folks over from 4 over to here. The Army is constantly working on their people to develop them over their careers. They don't ever let somebody sit in one area too long, or they start to stagnate or get too comfortable. They want to keep bouncing them around and challenging them and making sure they progress in their career. Are you working similar things in your employee, looking long-term development in these folks to continue building in your organization?
No, I think that's such a great perspective, because when I worked for Hyatt hotels, internally it was an acronym. It meant have your ass there tomorrow. Because as soon as you got comfortable, you were transferred. Because you lost that fresh eye, you lost that edge. We needed you to go to a new site. And because they had so many different sites in their portfolio, you were constantly being transferred. So you got to work so many different locations, so it stayed fresh. I love that approach. The challenge with that is ensuring that they understand what they're walking into, because a lot of them come in with the mindset that I've been successful in my previous position, I'm going to deliver that into this new position. But they don't understand that, some of it's not broken. There's actually some great systems, and they have to be willing to learn these new systems to be successful. But I like keeping them internal because, there's loyalty there. I trust this person. I've worked with this person for 10 years, or they've dedicated their time with me. I know I can invest time in them, and it's not for naught. So I think it's a key piece, is keeping people moving, seeing fresh, and constantly challenging them to rise to the occasion. We're creating opportunity. They're going to be successful or they're going to fail. Either way, we're going to be able to coach or praise. So, create the opportunity so they can.
Yeah, so I think too, the parallels are so close. The more we talk, because I've never had a civilian job. I was in college, a couple Target, I don't count that. But I think the parallels are so close. When you say tools, training, and support, we do purpose, direction, motivation. right? We have a couple of those things, those little, would it be defining leadership or defining those things in the Army? It's so close. That's just different words placed in those things. And I think for anybody watching, if you're in the military, in the Army, in the civilian world, it's we didn't just make it up. Smart people before us came and they figured it out for us. And so that's why we're having this conversation to develop when we have new people coming in, whether it be, like you said, the Gen Zs, the my generation millennials, or or before that. I think it's redefining leadership with each thing. So leading into the next thing is I've always thought leadership was a theory and not necessarily a static thing. It was ever changing. So Captain Trinkle and First Sergeant after that too is defining leadership for you, and then what kind of variables you have to place in each little thing you come across in command or being responsible for things. So I don't think it's a cookie cutter thing. You can take one or the other. You have to kind of develop trust and credibility, and then what else is behind that too, right? So with wherever you go.
So the best advice I ever got for leadership came from my cousin when I was just first coming into the military, and I was like, man, I have no idea how to lead. What am I going to do here? And he gave me just the advice I've stuck by in my entire career. He's like, just look the way that you want your subordinates to look, and just do the things that you want your subordinates to do. And I mean, in a nutshell, that covers the vast majority of it. Obviously, it's going to continue to develop from that point onward. But as long as you're living by those fundamentals, like, okay, I at the bare minimum, I need to be living the expectations that I have of my people. That's a huge part of it right there, and that usually smooths out a lot of the issues that you run into. Yeah. But it's also appreciating that not every situation is going to be exactly the same. Not every organization is the same. An organization, it's like a used car. So you'll have some that, people kept up on the maintenance, they changed the oil regularly, they took amazing care of it, and you just need to keep the system running just fine. And you have others where, people weren't up on it, and, there's hidden issues, maybe some rust poking through here and there, but you don't see it on the surface until you start digging into it, and you kind of have to root out those problems. So I think a big part of leadership is coming into an organization with your eyes and ears open and being willing to look and listen for what those problems are and identify them individually, and not just try to apply a cookie cutter pattern to every organization you come into, because they're going to have the most unique problems. They're going to have problems as unique as the people that man the organization themselves, and you got to be open and willing to deal with those one-on-one.
So First Sergeant, so same thing, same kind of similar question. I mean, what variables would you put in that equation to ensure success is the outcome?
Well, I think it's about communication, and you have the goal that you want to get your team to, and making sure that they understand the why, right? You talked about your younger employees questioning, because they want to know, why are we doing this? Why are we trying to do this? We haven't had a draft for the military for 50 years or something like that. It's been a long time. So everybody that's joined the Army, everybody in here that's in the Army was recruited by someone. That is the why of what we do. What we do every day is we've got to fill these ranks. It's not going to fill itself. And I think the second part to that is standards, right? You have got to, as a leader, maintain the standard that you have set forth. And the second that you don't, the second that you lower that standard, even if it's minuscule, you have now created a new standard. And your subordinates will see that, and they'll emulate that. Well, he's not doing it this way, so I'm going to do it like he's doing it. And I think if you just maintain that standard and you give them the understanding of this is why we are doing what we are doing, you'd be successful.
Yeah, I think you hit it around the nail too. Is why, if you ever listen to like Simon Sinek talk and those types of folks, those motivational speakers, why is the central part of what they do? It's not what or how, it's why they do it, and it's how they become such successful people, is because they get their employees to have buy-in for the why they're doing that, and not the what or the how. That's second nature, or that's kind of second, third order effects to getting your employees to understand why you're doing what you do. So brother, if you could talk a little bit about, I know we talked a little bit this before we started, but the work you're doing with a particular 92 Golf that's here in your restaurant.
Yeah, so we started a program pre-COVID, probably a year before COVID started, with actually 3 or 4 other restaurants here in town. And we wanted the 92 Goals the culinary specialists to understand what the restaurant industry looked like as a civilian, because when they're in the DFACs, when they're in the dining facilities, it's nonprofit. It's very high volume production with not real understanding of why, except to feed. So the business side isn't really there, and that's a big part of what we do as restaurants, right? It's to make profit in order to pay our staff, in order to purchase more product, to cover the expenses, and then reinvest the money. So we started this program to just do a global overview of what the restaurant industry looks like from our perspective. That way, if they do decide to go civilian, they're not walking into an entry-level position. Kitchens are very natural for a lot of soldiers just because the brigade exists, the discipline's there. It's very structured. The regiment makes sense. But we don't want them to just come in and be a prep cook or be a dishwasher. They should be leaders. So, this exposure is everything. And, as we've grown with each person, it's been unique because I've actually had completely different personalities with each soldier, which is like any employee. They all need to be treated as an individual. We had one person from 10th Group who, he was into bodybuilding. That was his thing. He wanted to make his muscles grow. That's all he cared about, was eating and working out, and he was assigned to be a cook. And I had to find a unique way to actually engage him. So, a lot of it, we start talking about macros and proteins and fats and carbs and what he was putting in his body. Now, how can you apply that into this industry? Because it's not just restaurants, it's not just hotels or conference centers. So we started talking about, training athletes. So celebrity chefs who have celebrity clientele, and they work with, basketball players or football players. So there's a lot of opportunity to apply your passion to something specific in this industry. So, the gentleman we have now, he wants to be a business owner. That was his one thing he said from the very beginning. I want to run my own business. So we're gauging his education with us over 45 days to understand the business, not just the kitchen, right? He's had to host and serve tables. He's been a dishwasher. He's helped me with demo. He's been a part of our online presence when it comes to our podcast and our YouTube. And he's getting to see financials and ask questions about that and how the money comes in the door, how it's dispersed, what's left over, and how it's reinvested. So it's giving him a broader idea of just business in general, because it's not just culinary.
Yeah, for me, that's good too. I mean, just coming as a recruiter standpoint, and this is my recruiter coming out of me a little bit, is that some people come in our office a lot of times and they look at 92 golf and they go, oh no. And so that coming from you is great, because they can see that and go, okay, and if they're listening to this, they go, okay, I can do these things. I can go here. I mean, we had a person join us in 92 golf a couple months back on the ACATS program because she had a culinary degree. She didn't have to go through any training whatsoever, and then she can come back and do other things in the civilian world. So you guys,
I was just going to ask what a 92 golf is for our listeners.
Yeah, 92 golf is a culinary specialist, yes, in the United States Army, and again, I think that's very important for these folks and listeners out there to know, whether they want to do civilian or military, that both routes are very similar, and you can kind of be incorporated into both things as well. So, and then so Colonel Olson, a couple things to kind of, I hate saying this word, but caveat. It's overused. I apologize. But so when it comes to giving advice to future leaders. So when we talk about the coming up generations, and I'd like to give all your guys' perspective on this, but giving advice to the 17 or 18-year-old that's kind of trying to figure out where they fit in this world.
Yeah, great question. So, I wish I would have been told early on in my career to be who I am, right? I had to learn the hard way to identify who I was, what makes me tick, and to not try to be somebody else. As a young platoon leader, I had a great company commander, and I wanted to be just like him. But his leadership style wasn't my personality, so I had to learn how to adapt and to develop my own leadership style. So I would tell a young person to be true to who they are, to their principles, to their core values, and then to look for mentors, look for and leadership is not you don't become a leader and then that's the end state, right? It is a constant process. We talked a little bit about it earlier. You were talking about theory. It's not something that you reach that point where you're a great leader. It's a constant developing process. And the other thing I would tell a young leader is, like I said, just to be based off of core principles and values. We have the values in the Army of loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. My favorite one of those is selfless service. I think being a servant leader and showing the people that you lead and guide that you care about them and that they truly do matter is probably one of the most important things we can do, because they will then, in my experience, then want to do a lot more, give a lot more. And I've been the same way with those that have inspired me. We talked about earlier about inspirational leaders, and I'm willing to give 200% to those leaders that are inspiring and motivating and care about me and my family.
Appreciate it, sir. And we're going to probably step on each other a little bit here with the same thing, but I'd like to give everybody a perspective. But Captain Trinkle?
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody coming up these days, I would tell them anytime in your career, you just need to keep your eyes and ears open, that a good idea can literally come from anywhere. And the second that you don't want to listen to somebody because of their background or their stature at the job or anything like that, you're selling yourself short, because good ideas literally come from every direction. And great leaders, they don't. You don't stand at the top and just be like, I'm the only one that will have good ideas and decide what's going to happen with this. The great leaders are the ones who open up the floor on certain occasions and allow people to put in their input, because people see things differently from different perspectives. Sometimes the guy at the bottom or the guy mopping the floor or something like that, he sees a lot. He sees just as much as anybody else does in certain times, and he may see more even based on his proximity to the leadership. And so being willing to hear what he has to say, or she, excuse me, and what they think might help make the organization better, can be a very profound way to influence an organization and show people that, you aren't just trying to be the boss, but somebody that's actually trying to make something better.
Appreciate it. First Marshall?
For new leaders, I would say probably two things. One would be, no matter what you do, give maximum effort. You might surprise yourself. And number two, I would say don't let your fear of failure stop you from trying something new, because that's where you will grow. And I can say that it's happened to me. Failing is really where I've grown the most. You don't really grow when you're successful. You enjoy it more, but it's when you fail that you really go back and look. Okay, how can I get better? How can I readjust? But that's those two things.
Jeff?
I mean, there's some great points here. If there's anything that I would say to a young leader, and I refer to this from experience, my first position of leadership, I was 19 years old, and I was in charge of 50 employees in a very large, high volume production hotel, and I had to figure out how to motivate, inspire, lead, and discipline people who were 2 to 3 times my age. So if there's any advice I would give to a young leader is come from a curious position, ask questions. When you look at someone like the president sits in a room with advisors, and the president doesn't give direction, he asks questions. What do you think about this? How should we handle this? What's your thoughts? I've tried to go entire days without giving statements when it comes to work, just asking questions all day long, because I'm shocked at how much information is provided when I'm curious. So I think coming from a curious place actually gives you a lot more insight and allows you to have better course of action in your style of leadership.
100%. I think I've always had this opinion where great leaders aren't born, they're molded. And I think if we bring kind of that full circle a little bit of everyone in here has had some type of a person or persons influence them in a certain way to inspire them to be better, or even on, like First Sergeant Marshall said, the failing point, because you're going to have bad leaders sometime as well, like brother was saying, to where that's going to push me this way and that's going to push me that way. So, and I think like from my point of view, it's taking a little bit from each leader and putting that in the toolbox, or putting that in my own personality and how I'm going to put that out into my employees or my soldiers. So I know Chef Brothers looks got kind of a heart out here to get to his other restaurant to make awesome things happen over there too. But I'd love to go really around the room and just talk about things that are happening in the future, what's upcoming. We'll end with Chef Luck, and we'll start with Captain Trinkle, First Arm, about the Springs recruiting, what's upcoming, what do we have going on, and our closing comments that you guys might want to put out there.
So, yeah, we've got the Baton Death March tomorrow coming up. We're going to go up to the Air Force Academy, knock out a marathon with weight at 7,500 feet. It's going to be a good time. We're going to bring snacks and just go for a little walk. We also have a partnership we're trying to set up with Shields and work with them and utilize that stuff. We'd also like to continue hanging out with Chef Luck here and hanging out and just talking. I'm really enjoying that. And what was the last one? Yeah.
Additionally, too, is just look out for more essential worker awards. I know Chef Luck recently was awarded that a couple weeks ago, and we're going to continue to do that across Colorado Springs and maybe even across Colorado. So look out for more essential workers, recognizing folks in the community just doing great stuff for their community, their business, and those types of things. So if you have any recommendations, if you have anybody out there that you know that's just doing awesome stuff, reach out to us, reach out to the U.S. Army Recruiting Command in the Colorado Springs area, and let us know who they are and what they're doing so we can try to recognize them. Captain Trinkle?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, keep an eye out for us this summer. We'll be out there. The Colorado Mud Run is coming up this summer. We'll be out there. Got some obstacles that our recruiters will be manning and helping motivate. Some of our drill sergeants' backgrounds will be out there giving the proper encouragement as people go through some of the tougher obstacles. We're also going to be out there at the Colorado State Fair this summer. So please come on out, show your support, and let us know that you're out there. We'd appreciate it.
Sir?
Yeah, on top of what Captain Trickle said, first of all, Chef Brother Luck, thanks for hosting us up here. We appreciate it, and we look forward to the continued relationship. But, yeah, we've got a lot of events coming up this spring, summer. Hopefully the restrictions are getting less and less, and we can get out face-to-face, participating in county fairs. 4th ID, the Mountain Post here, Fort Carson, Colorado, has offered up and again to support us in some of our recruiting events with some of their new toys and some of the equipment they have, and we're going to have that out on display at several events. But again, Chef Luck, appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Chef, please tell us the awesomeness that is going on in your life right now.
Oh, it's nonstop. I'm just grateful to be here in Colorado Springs. We're seeing so much community support, and it's been just overwhelming on keeping our businesses alive. Coming out of COVID on this tail end, we've gone through 3 different expansions here at Lucky Dumpling alone. We've built an entire bar and lounge downstairs. We just finished up a patio expansion, and we're actually sitting in our future home of the studio, which is going to be an interactive space for about 20 people, where we do all of our broadcasting, live cooking classes, demos, wine dinners, pop-ups, private receptions. So it's really exciting to watch everything grow. And then for they're getting ready to celebrate their 4th birthday, which is amazing. It's been 4 years of hard work in that restaurant. They're rolling out their new menu today, so we're officially into spring, and I'm excited to showcase all those beautiful ingredients. So continue to support all these amazing places here in Colorado Springs. It's such a community, and it's made up of our military, but also a lot of small business owners. So it's exciting to be a part of it.
Well, again, appreciate everybody out there who's watching. I hope you were able to learn something from these individuals who have a wealth of knowledge and experience in the leadership, motivation, and inspiration fields of just trying to motivate people to get a mission accomplished or a task done. And again, like Colonel Olson said, appreciate you allowing us to come up to your space. If you're watching this on our platform, take a look at Brother Luck's podcast, No Luck's Given, correct? So please go. Make sure I don't say that wrong. But please go. Take watch all his podcasts. He's got great content. I think that's it. Anybody else got anything else? Good.
We're hiring.
We're hiring.
United States Army's hiring.
Yeah, right.
All times.
I think Chef is too, right? Maybe.
Absolutely.
I think
yes.
right. So good. All right, hey Chef. Again, appreciate it.
No, absolutely.